right? Okay, now is it fine, Amit? Is it fine, Amit? Okay. Is it fine, Amit? The Zoom level? Okay, great. Cool. This is the browser. This is the code screen. Cool. Okay, now we will begin. Right. Yes, now a lot more people have joined. Anyway, let's start, guys. So if you remember yesterday, we were talking more about constructor functions, right? We realized that constructor functions are basically a special case wherein we are using the new keyword, right? And what that is helping us, it's helping us with a more concise syntax, right? So let's say this is a car and we wanted to create a car. So how we run this, guys, we say new car with the properties, right? So now when we say new car, the way JavaScript internally works, we know, is whenever a constructor function is called like this, we will be assigning an empty object to this, right? So you can consider this as a name of a variable inside this car function. You assign this as an empty object. Then basically whatever I had passed in here, I am assigning that to this variable, right? And finally, I'm returning that same thing, returning this, correct? All of this internally happens. Of course, it's not shown to us. Of course, we don't need to write any of this. We don't need to write this or even this line, right? So this was the first use case of this that we realized yesterday. The second one was wherein you had your own car object, right? So let's say this was the car object, const car is equal to this, right? We wanted to access the whole object inside one of the object methods, right? And then we realized a more practical use case of this, wherein we had this car object, writing it here. And when I say car.drive, what ends up happening is it reduces the fuel by 1, right? Because just to mimic the functionality of drive. So when a car is going to get driven, the fuel is going to get reduced, right? So this is what is happening here. Everyone clear with this? Everyone? That is absolutely wonderful. If there are so many S's, not easy, not an easy concept. Okay, great. So we have been mostly talking about objects, right? And we'll continue to do the same today, right? We'll try to learn more interesting things about objects, which are kind of required also, right? So there are two things that I want to talk about right now. Okay, so the first one that I wanted to talk about is something called as accessor methods, right? So what are accessor methods? So in the world of typical object-oriented programming, but arrow function takes global reference. Why? Pradeep, I'll be explaining this when we move to the details of this, right? So like I mentioned the other day, right now, we know a very small fraction of what this particular keyword is, right? We just know 2 use cases, right? The first use case is when you call a function with new. The second use case is when you have an object inside which you are writing this type of function, right? So basically this is the same way as this, an anonymous function, right? And not an arrow function. So this is not, these two are not equal. So this is one way of writing it. And of course, this is the other way of writing it. Right now, we are only learning this. Why we are not going to the arrow function, I'll tell you later. Okay, so this is going to be one of our full sessions very soon, right? So don't worry about that. Okay, moving forward from this, and leave this. Now what we are going to talk about is accessor methods, right? Accessor, ACC, methods in objects, right? There are two types of methods. One are called setters, right? Which of course, as the name suggests, it's for setting some value of an object, right? Can anyone tell me what will be the other name? One is you set, the other is you. Anyone? Get, right? Or getters. Maybe you can set something. Setter is just like setting, unsetting are pretty much the same thing. You set something else, that's basically unsetting. Right? Then we have getting some value. Right? Okay, setters and getters. Okay, so now what they are about, hi Shubham, what they're about, let's try to understand that. So again, this is something special inside the JavaScript language, which JavaScript language provides, right? Let me explain that to you very quickly. Okay, so let's say you had your car, right? In which there was color, there was fuel, and let's say there is some other property, let's say name. I'm just going to say M3, right? Right? So guys, there are two ways to get this name if you look at it, right? So what is the first way? Either I can say console.log name, car.name. Into the browser. Right? There can be another name also, right? There can be another way also. Okay, I'll write the functional way of doing it. Okay, and please tell me if I'm writing it right, correct. Okay, so I'm going to say show name. Let's call it show name or give name, anything, right? In here, I'm going to say return this dot name, right? And of course, I can say car.give name, and it's giving me M3. Do you guys understand this syntax? Car.give give name. Easy enough, right? So of course, one is we directly accessed it using the name of the property. The second is we called a function which was saying this dot name. And as we know, guys, this dot name is basically referring to this object and it's providing its name to us. Correct? Everyone, fine now? Okay. So similarly, right, there could be give name, right? And there could be set name also, right? Or so it's, since I'm calling it give, I'm going to call it put name, right? Right. Another, these are, or let me say, call it update name. It sounds better. Okay. In here, what I'm going to say is whatever value you pass to this guy, let's say I'm passing it a new name as a parameter, of course. And what I'm going to do is I'll say this dot name equals new name, right? And I'll return the new name. Does everyone understand this? What I have done here? We'll try calling it now. Guys, give name, update name. Okay. Now let's call update name. Right? I have not talked about getters and setters, Ajit, up until now. I've only mentioned two methods. I said that we will be talking about getters and setters. We have not. So now when we say car dot update name, and let's say I call it 6, right? What do you think, guys, is going to happen? What do you guys think is going to happen? Name change, right? So if I do this, now if you look at car, the name of the car is M6, which was earlier different, as we know, right? And of course, it's returning that also because we have, we've simply written this thing here, right? Did we understand, guys? Right? Okay. So in some sense, this, if we talk about the definition, which I just said here, setter is for setting some value, getter is for getting some value. In some sense, this is for getting the value of name, right? So we can call it a getter of name, right? And this is for setting the value of name, right? Now, these things are so common or are so important in a language, right? That what JavaScript community ended up doing, guys, is they ended up creating special methods for it. Okay, let's try to understand them very quickly. Any meaning behind giving parameter when you wrote update name? RV, I want to update a name to whatever I sent from here. How else should I do it? I need to give the name that I want to update, right? I can't assume something and update it. Make sense, RV? हाँ या ना बोल दिया करो. Okay. Cool. Moving forward. So now you had car. Okay, like this. Now what I'm going to do is, please try to understand this. I am just going to say name, right? And then, right? Then I'm going to say get in front of it, right? Guys, am I audible? Okay, some problem. Cool. Did you understand this? So what I have done here, very simply, I'm saying get, okay? And then I'm writing, let me make it, let me call it name getter, name get, something like that, right? So please try to understand what I'm trying to tell you is that this get thing in JavaScript is a reserved keyword, okay? So it's not, so this is a very new syntax, I'm sure for all of you. So what does it say? It says get the name of the getter method, so to say, right? And inside that, whatever you want to return from the object, right? And I'll just remove the update name so that there is no confusion, right? Now, when I have to get this value, right, I can say car dot name get. Did you guys see what happened? Guys, did you just see what happened? I said car dot name get. I did not say, like in the older ones, if you remember, we had to say car dot give name, and we had to call that function. See, please recognize this subtle difference. This is a method, and we know method or function needs to be called. So this was called, right? But if you look at name get, in this case, it did not require that calling. Did everyone understand this, folks? Okay, cool. So this is an example of getter. A more practical example, right? A more practical example is, let's say person. Person has name. Okay, let's say ABC. Person has last name. Let's say DEF. I'm creating a getter which is called full name, right? And what is it going to do? It's going to return this dot name plus dot last name. Here, now when I say person dot full name, see what I get? I'm getting the full name of that person. Did we ever understand, guys? Vidyasagar, I think this should answer your question. This example should answer your question. Anyone, any questions, please ask. अरे प्रतीक भाई तभी तो बनाया है ना यहाँ पे. आई एम रिटर्निंग समथिंग. दिस डॉट नेम प्लस दिस डॉट लास्ट नेम कर रहा हूँ, है ना. एंड दिस वाज अ गेटर. आई एम जस्ट रेफरिंग टू दिस बाय सेइंग पर्सन डॉट फुल नेम. Of course you can do anything. It's basically it's a function also. It's just like a function, right? But not with a getter. Not with this. If you were going to create a method, right? In method you can do whatever you want, right? Basically this, see guys, this is created for a very specific use case. Okay, this is just to create a getter, right? To get whatever you want to in a convenient manner. That's what it is about. For doing things like passing parameters, doing other things, you should always rely on your own methods, right? Did everyone understand this? Getter. Yes, Ajit, of course. That's what I'm saying. This is only meant for getting things. You can't do back and forth between this. You can't pass data to it. You can't get data that way. Whatever is written in here can be simply accessed by the name of the key. That's all it is about. Are we clear, everyone? Shall I move forward? Get full name, I'll explain again. Okay. Are you looking at this? So there's a person which has these three properties. Okay. Inside that, I've created a getter which is called full name, right? The full name getter, this thing basically only means that you can access this property without making it like a function call, right? So if you do person dot full name, you get whatever is being returned from this guy and nothing else happens. That's what a getter is. Okay, moving forward, I think it's clear with everyone now. So this was the JavaScript getter method, right? Similarly, guys, very similarly, there is a setter method, right? Right? So let's say, Adam bhai, kya nahi samjha, ye batao. What are you not able to understand? Did you understand method before this? If I write this thing, do you understand this when I'm doing, do you understand this? Right? The only thing apart from this that I have mentioned is that JavaScript also has a feature which is for getter, right? Which is called getter. In that, what you do is in front of the function, right? So this is also like a function, right? Like get name is a function. This is also a function. In front of that, when you specify a get like this, then whatever you return from that does not need to be like a function call. It can simply be person dot full name, right? So the difference is get name is being called like this because it's a function. Full name is not being called because it's a getter and not a function. That's the difference. Adam, are you clear? Guys, do you have any questions? Are your questions addressed? Sunny, Prateek. Let's try doing that. Good question. It's going to say it's not a function because it's not a function. It's a getter. It's a special case. Okay, I think we're good. Now let's move to setters. And what if we add, Array Priyanka, it's meant for return getting something, right? If you don't return something from a function, then you can't get something out of it. Let's say you remove this. Okay. Now when you say person.get, person.full name, you get undefined. When you don't return something, what gets returned? Undefined gets returned, right? Folks, shall I move forward? Are we good with this? Return is an output of the function. No, that's not the case, Ajit. Please go and refer to the lectures on function. This should not be a question for anyone, guys. What is return right now? Please keep revising older lectures, guys. Otherwise, you'll keep forgetting. Okay. Next. Like there are getters, there are setters. Okay. So what was the setter example that we had talked about? We had talked about when we were updating the name, right? This was our example of setting a value, right? What was this doing when you say car.update name and whatever value you were passing here, right? It was updating the car. So earlier the car was M3, now the name is C6. So in some sense, it's setting the value of an object, right? Similarly, like there is get, there is set also. What will happen in that case is you have update name, right? Now I'm going to say set name. I call it car name because I don't want to confuse it with this key, right? Right. Inside this, the way a setter would work is you do the same thing. One is you need to pass it, of course, the new name. And then you need to set that name. So I'm going to say this dot name is equal to new name. Very similar to how I have done an update. Right? Now when I call this, again, very simply to set the name, what you can do is car name is equal to the new value of the car. So let's say C7. Right? Please look at this. Car name was actually a function, but since it was prepended by set, it becomes a setter. So what that means is you can assign values to it by using equal to. And what JavaScript will internally do, it will take this here and it will update that value. It will update whatever you have written inside that, right? So now if we look at car, the name is C7 and not the older M3. Did we understand this? Getter and setter. Guys, everyone should say yes or should ask a question. I'll just wait for 1 minute. It's used to update or set a value. It does not make sense, Amit. Of course you can, right? It's a function at the end of the day. But where is it going to return anything? Its intention is for setting, not getting. When you have the intention of getting, then you return something makes sense. Clear, everyone? Okay, so I'll paste this here. Can't we directly update the value without using update function? Of course you can, right? So what is the value add? If that should be a question, right? What is the point of this? Let me just write this here and then I will tell you what is the point of this. Okay. See, right now these are simple updates, right? There was a name, there was fuel, there was something, right? But there are cases when the updates are very complicated, right? Let's say there was some property of the car, right, which we wanted to update, right? But it internally dependent on 4 other properties, right? In that case, having a logic like this is very handy, right? The moment you say car dot this thing is equal to this thing, whatever value gets passed inside it, you can do whatever with it. You can access these properties inside the car and just get done with it, right? For example, when we talked about full name, right? For getting the full name, the getter of full name was helping us in the sense that, let me write it. It was combining both of the things for us without us having to do anything, right? In a very simple syntax. So let's say this dot full name, this dot name plus, in this case, I'll just call it this dot color because it's a car and not a person, right? Simply by saying full name like this, car dot full name, you will get the complete name. You will get 2 properties, right? In complicated cases, what can happen is when you're building large objects, when the use case is bigger, there could be, so let's say there was a function which was called get mileage. Okay. Mileage. Now this thing can be a very complex calculation, right? Let's say of fuel, let's say of efficiency, let's say of power, and many other things, right? Of course, which are not part of this car right now. In that case, having a method which can help you do this complicated calculation just by saying car.computer mileage is a very useful tool, isn't it, guys? Guys, are you with me? Right? So in this case, okay, Amit is saying not clear. Amit, what did you not understand? All I mentioned is getters can get very handy, right? In case of computed mileage, right? Let's say you wanted to get the computed mileage, right? What is that? Maybe that's a combination of multiple properties inside the car. Initial fuel quality, power, terrain, and hundreds of other properties, right? Because a car can have many properties, which we have not mentioned here, right? In that case, if we had a getter called compute mileage, and we were able to access that complicated calculation just by saying car.computed mileage, will that not be very effective? Will that not be very simple way of doing it? That's the point I'm making. Amit, is it clear now? No, I mean, of course, no, I think, hey guys, why are you confusing this, right? So right now, this is a combination of three properties, right? But a car can have many other properties, right? It can have power, some value, right? It can be riding on a terrain, which can have some value, right? It can have, I don't know, fuel type, which can have some value, and maybe hundreds of other properties, right? When I'm doing computed mileage, basically it would be a complicated formula which is relating all of these things: power, fuel type, terrain, everything, right? And let's say we are able to do that complicated calculation here, right? And then finally return the computed mileage, right? Will that not make it very simple for us? All we have to do is we have to say car.computed mileage. It will do all of the hard work for you, which is of course already written here. Making sense, people? For example, set middle name and then return the complete name, which is a combination. Yes, that could be one of the use cases, Sweta. So get full name with middle name, right? For example, in that case, maybe what would be happening is you are sending this guy the middle name, and this guy already had the name and the last name, and this guy is adding 3 of them, right? Something like that. Can we do any large calculation? It's a function, Atul. You can do whatever inside it that you want. You can write any JavaScript inside it that you want, right? Whatever you can write outside it, you can write here. Why updating is coming into picture? I did not understand that question, Sweta. It just provides you with an easy syntax. That's the only difference. That's the only difference. It's providing you with an easy syntax. So if I have to talk about it, it is giving you simple syntax. It just making everything same, right? Just like you access property, you are able to access your methods also. So it's bringing that, parity. It's making everything kind of similar, right? And just like I said, it's allowing you to sort of do things behind the scene, right? So externally, you would just be saying car.computed mileage, and internally, a lot of things can happen. But all you see is a name of a key, correct? Okay, I think it's clear now. How to calculate mileage? Same thing, na, Ajit. What you will do is you will create a method here, right? So instead of get computed mileage, maybe you're going to say compute mileage, right? And then you're going to write a function. Now, how you're going to access this? You're going to access this by calling it car.compute mileage function call, right? And in the above case, you can just say car.computed mileage. So the intention is you start making properties, right? You use functions just like normal properties, right? So as you know, we can access car.fuel, car.color, right? But for calling these functions or methods, you have to call them, right? So getters and setters just make everything flat. So car.name will also be called like this, car.computed mileage will also be called like this without making any function call here. So the outside user can just feel that, hey, I'm accessing a regular property, right? But internally in our object, we can do all sorts of complicated things without letting the user know what is happening under the hood, right? Is this clear now? Shall I move forward, guys? Absolutely clear, right? Any doubt you can ask? Okay, I think we are good. Cool. Okay. Right. Apart from this, we had already spoken about constructors. So we are looking at kind of the end of objects for us, right? And now probably we can start with a new topic for now. And then again, once we get to the details of this, it's anyway going to come back up. Right. So anyway, moving forward, right? So there are two things that I wanted to talk about before we move any forward. It was strings, as you may remember. I had mentioned this yesterday. We've not talked about some of the string methods, which can also, of course, get very important as we move forward in the course of JavaScript, right? So a couple of methods, guys. Let's start talking about all of them one by one. Opening this thing. Okay. End of topic. Let's string methods. Okay. So for using the string method, first we need a string, right? So what I'm going to do is I am going to create a string. So I'll call let name is equal to, let's say, abc ghi, right? Some name, correct? So the very first or the fundamental method when using strings is the length, right? So just like arrays have length property, right? 1 to 3 dot length is a property. Strings also have that length property. So let's say you had name, you can always say name dot length. So it will tell you how long the string is, right? Right. Similarly, I'm just first talking about the similar properties so that it's easy for everyone to relate with. Okay, I hope I'm audible, right? The second part is called the slice, right? So if you remember, we had a slice method in arrays also, right? How does slice work? Let's say we had 1, 2, 3, 4 in array. When I say dot slice, it asks me for the start and it asks me for the end, right? Until end minus 1, it will basically create a subarray for you. Very similarly in string, let's say I have a string. I'm going to call it sentence. Okay. And here I'm going to say sentence dot slice, right? Very similar, 0 to 2, right? And I was able to extract my from it, correct? Similarly, let's say if I wanted to extract name, I will have to say from 2 to 5, 2 to 7, right? Clear? But if you look at this, what is happening is it's capturing the dash also, because this is the second index. Strings are also 0 index. So this is 0, 1, 2. We should start from 3, 4, 5, 6. And of course, it takes one lesser. So we have to go from 3 to 7. Right? No, Shabam, we can't. When slicing, we will slice it perfectly. We will not fix it after slicing. Okay, so like I said, slice basically extracts a part of the string and returns the extracted part as a new string, correct? Like I said, guys, important to remember, in JavaScript, for arrays as well as for strings, the counting starts from 0, right? However, JavaScript does give you a mechanism to kind of put negative numbers also, right? So in case of negative numbers, what can happen is maybe you can say -5, right? And now what JavaScript is doing, instead of starting from 0, which was m, it will go all the way from the backside. So this is -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, right? Which was s. And since I've not specified the second argument, it's going all the way to the end, right? So if I had to extract ABC, I can say -3, right? And I can go, I don't even have to say anything, right? It will just do it for me, start to end. Similarly, if I have to extract, let's say is, if I say -6, right? And I say till -3, -2, -4, actually, I can extract is. Is this clear? Everyone? Slice is clear for everyone? Nice, or no, there is nothing like that. This is slice, which is for extracting part of the string. And these are indexes of the string. Very clear, right? The negative part is also clear. So a very common use case. Sir, why we need that? It's complex. Sorry, Ankit, I'm not the one who made it. I'm just here to explain it. A very common case where you want to extract the last character of any string, right? You can typically do this sentence dot slice and say -1, right? So it comes in very handy, guys, whenever you want to find the last character of any string, right? Last character of someone's name or anything, right? So you say -1 and it just gives you that. If you want last 2, -2, -3, and so on, right? Very important use cases, these things are. Slice may from backward to forward. No, it will always be in this direction. That is what you should know. Right? At least you should keep it in this direction. So what that means is from a more negative number, from a smaller number to a larger number. Right? So let's say from a smaller number to a larger number, that's fine. It is pretty similar to an array. See, that you can of course do, but first you need to understand what is the point of -7. Because at times, Sonu, it makes sense to read the string from the backside, right? So understand this, computing these last 3 characters, right? Let's say you wanted to extract ABC from it. Isn't it easier just to say -3? Right? Otherwise, what you'll have to do is you'll have to count all the way to this guy, right? So even when I'm looking at it, it's very hard for me to count from here to here, right? So that's why this functionality is provided, so that you can read it from both the ends, right? Essentially, that's what a negative index means. Either you start from this side or you start from the back side. That makes no sense, Alam. Like I said, it always has to be in this direction. This direction it has to be, otherwise it's not sensible. Slice means cutting. Its dictionary meaning is getting a slice of something, getting a piece of something. It's a string method. We did not create any JSON file. We created a JSON string. Yes, Amit. What we could have done is we could have removed the last character by doing this. Okay, one by one, guys, one by one. In case of a long para, we might not know about the index of a specific word. So then you use something else. This is not meant for solving every problem that you have with strings, right? So the negative side, does it skip the following index like in positive count? It's going to behave exactly the same way as the positive index. The point is very simple. It moves from the left direction, left side to the right side, which means from a smaller number to a larger number. Cool. Talking about something called as substring, right? So if you go back to sentence, this is what sentence looks like, right? Let's say we want to extract a specific part of it. Right? Let's say again, I wanted to extract any name out of it. What I can also do is I can say sentence dot substr. Right? Again, it takes from. So where I'm going to tell it the index, which is let's say 3 for name, and the length that I want to extract. So I want to extract 4 characters. So I say 4. Okay, this is a very commonly asked question. What is the difference between substr, string.substr, and string.slice, right? You can achieve the same thing using both, but they behave differently. In slice, you give the starting index and the ending index. In substr, you give the starting index followed by how many elements in terms of length that you want to extract, right? That is difference 1. Second is this guy cannot accept negative values because of course 4, right? This guy, the length of the number of characters that you want to extract cannot be negative. Splice is an array method. Substr is a string method. There is nothing as sentence.splice. Right? The other difference that you can talk about is sub-str does not actually modify this, string, but splice method modifies the array. Everyone clear? Guys, are we good with this? This one, I'm just going to type it out because this is very important. Method can take negative values. Amit, I just told you the same thing. Splice is not a string method. You can't use it on a string, right? Splice can only be used on an array. So that's an invalid question. Slice makes the string into array. No, it does not. It works differently internally. Yes, and between splice and slice, splice will mutate the array, while slice does not mutate the array. It does not mutate the string also. So in case of strings, all methods, right? All methods will not mutate, or rather any method. Again, very important fact. Will not mutate the original string. And it will always return a new string. These facts are clear to everyone. Are these facts clear to everyone? Sudhir, पढ़ो क्या लिखा है यहाँ पे? Read this, Sudhir. So then why are you asking that question? Can it take negative values when I've specifically written it here? Guys, are you not able to look at the screen or what? Is my screen visible for everyone? Then, okay, maybe you didn't see, Sudhir. Just pay attention, right? Okay, anyway, sub-str again. Sub-str is used to extract specific parts of the string. It takes two parameters. The first parameter is the starting index. So let's say in this case, I'm going to call it 3 because I want to start from n, right? Then it takes how many characters or what length do I want to extract? So let's say I say 4. So it's going to extract 4 characters after the third index, which is 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's how I extract name. Is this clear? Okay. Mutate means change. Shall we move forward, guys? Shall we? Okay, great. Speaking of the next methods. Okay. So we just talked about sub-str function, right? And similarly, as there is sub-str, yeah, that's what we need pretty much right now. Okay, just for everyone's method, just for everyone's information, just like there is sub-str, There's something called a substring also, right? And the way substring works is pretty much the same way. So again, I can start from 3 here and I can end it at 4, right? But what is happening is, if you look at it very carefully, right, the second part, right, in substring is not the length, but the index, right? So if I say 6 and if I say 7, then it can give me name also, right? So very similar to slice. No, it's not the same. In case of substr, right, you will have to do 3, 4. It will not take negative values. Both of them do not take negative values. Only slice takes negative values, right? To explain this again, substr, we already know about it, right? Starting index to the length. Substring is like slice, right? Exactly like slice actually, but does not take negative values. Clear? Substr and substring. I wanted to introduce it at the end. This is the difference, Vishal. This line that I've highlighted is the difference. Okay. Now let's move to the next method. This one is called replace. Okay, and as the name suggests, it takes 2 things, right? So let's say you had your sentence. It takes 2 things. The first thing it takes is the first character that you want to replace, right? Or the first part of the string that you want to replace. Let's say I want to replace my. I can say my, right? And then maybe I can replace it with m, right? Or I can replace it with anything, right? If I do this, see what happened? And I can just switch it back. As replace sounds like, correct? Right? And you can replace anything. So one common use case is, let's say you are replacing spaces by dashes, right? But always remember, it will just replace the first instance. Nothing like space. So nothing like it. No relation, right? Let's say I wanted to replace the spaces with dashes. This is what I did, right? But the problem is it will replace only the first one. Then no change. On the contrary, there is something called as replace all, which replaces everything. So replace is for replacing the first instance. Replace all is for replacing all instances. Is everyone clear? So there is nothing as selective replacement, right? Either you can replace the first one, or you can replace all of them. So replace and replace all. And of course, you can replace anything, right? So let's say I wanted to replace anything, you can replace actually. Okay. And always remember, it does not change the original string. So sentence will remain as it is. It will return the new string to you. right? So you can probably store it in a new variable. Sentence is same, but sentence 2 is changed. Fine, everyone? Shall I move forward? Okay, what else? So we talked about replace, then we talked about replace all, right? Okay, now another common use case, right, is about converting string cases, right? So it's a very typical case, like in websites also, you must have seen that in some places you're writing your name, right? Like I'm writing ABC, but it gets converted to this thing automatically, right? Have you seen this happen? You write small and it gets converted into capital. Right? So this is done by something called as to uppercase. To uppercase. Right? To uppercase method. As the name suggests, ABC. So let's say I have my sentence. I could say sentence dot to. See what happened? Right? Useful tool, guys. Can be very useful tool. Okay. And now we are going to do one question on this. Shall we do one question on this? If everyone says yes, we can do it. Always just returned string never changes. I have told this multiple times. Okay. Okay. So this is the question. Write a function which takes a function, let's say a name, right? And it just converts the first character to uppercase. For example, let's say I'm calling it with my name, like this. Right? What should it do? It should return this. Okay, so it should convert the first character, right? And mind you, if I had written something like this, then also it should return me this thing. Can anyone give this answer? Absolutely wrong, Shivam, but anyway. So just like two uppercase, there is two lowercase. Same thing they do. Convert the string into uppercase, convert the string into lowercase. That's it, Amit. That's all the knowledge you need. You could have done it without that also, but fine. Two uppercase converts the whole string into uppercase. So this saying two uppercase will definitely not work. No one has an answer? Guys, does no one have an answer, really? Question is right here. If I pass a name to it, it should return the name with first letter capitalized. Even if everything was capital, or even let's say this was the case, right? In both the cases, it should return this. Replace method will not work because you do not know which one to, what is the first character that you want to replace, right? Okay, so Anjali is saying name dot slice 0. What will that return? Okay, let's try out what Anjali is saying. So let's see, you had sentence, right? When you say dot slice 0, right? What happens? It gives you the same thing. Okay. To which she's saying dot to uppercase. Doesn't work, right? So Vishal, that's for a specific use case, na? We'll be passing any general name to it. In your case also, Shivam, see what you are doing is a mistake, right? You're saying slice 0, 1, right? What that will do is it will just convert the first letter to uppercase. But what about the rest of the name? You can't use carat, Pradeep. I have not taught you that. Okay. Now Amit is saying, let's look at it. Interesting answer. Sentence dot sub str 1 to 1, right? Why 1 to 1 and not 0 to 1, Amit? Why 1 to 1 and not 0 to 1? Okay. To uppercase, great. But what that will do, that will just return the first character in uppercase. Then what you can do with it, you can just add the remaining part of the string to it. So what can we say? Sentence dot slice or substr, anything works. 1 dot to lowercase. Will this always work? Let's try it out. So I'm just going to say return name like this, right? Again, let's try to run this. Okay, I'll just move it here. Now when I call it with convert first cat to upper, this guy. Okay, instead of, I think I've written sentence here and it's taking sentence, my bad. It would be name, right? Okay, now when we say this works, when we say this also works. So yes, good solution. The intention was very simple: convert, extract the first character, make it capitalized, extract the rest of the characters and make them small. That's it, right? No, my solution is also very similar. Only this is what you need to do. You just need to make the first letter capital and make the rest of the letters small and then just add the 2. Of course, there are various ways to do it, but the concept is just this. Is everyone clear? Yes. So we've already read all the methods, guys, which were needed for it. What we needed to do is extract the first character, extract the rest of the characters. Okay. So yeah. Let's talk about the next one. So we already know 2 lowercase, right? Now, one other probably interesting one, right? That one is called concat, right? So just like we have, concat means joining 2 things, right? So let's say I had a string A and I wanted to join B and C to it, for example. So I say dot concat B, C, and it can take as many arguments as needed, right? So how does it work? It takes one string, you call dot concat on it, and you pass any number of arguments, just like math.min or math.max, right? Where we can pass any number of arguments and everything still works. This is just the similar example. Everyone understood this? Guys, simple enough, right? So let's call it concat method. Please note, guys, this is this can be useful where earlier, remember if we had to do this without concat method, what would we be doing? We would be saying A plus B plus C plus D plus E, right? We would be writing something like this. But with concat, it becomes very simple, right? There is no order here, Sheikh. Whichever way you write, it just concatenates. I don't know what char is, Anchal. Anchal. What is char? Have we talked about char until now, guys? What is char, Anchal? What are characters, Amit? Have we talked about characters? I really don't know what characters are or what char is. There is no method like splice an array in which we add string. Like splice. Splice is not used to add string. Ajay, did you mean concat? Ajay, did you mean concat? I don't know any other language, Shivam, what to do here. I only know JS. Okay, shall I move forward then? I don't think anyone has any relevant question. Okay, so see, we have sentence. Sentence one is Amit. Sentence two is Mishra. Here, how do we concat? Very simple, right, Amit? So I'm calling it S1 equal to Amit. S2 is equal to Mishra, right? S1 dot concat S2. If you want to concat space, also just add that as a string. So essentially concatenating these three things. Is that clear, Amit? Yes, pretty similar to what we do in arrays. Okay. Anyway, let's move forward. Okay. The next one, guys, second string is always inside parentheses, right? There is nothing as second string. There is second function which takes n number of arguments. So there is nothing like, it's a function, right, Priyanka? Concat is a function which is taking n number of arguments, right? Can be any number of arguments, right? And we'll just concatenate everything that we've written. So Ankit, we just talked about this concat method. What it does is you specify one of the strings, you say concat to it, right? And then whichever other string you wanted to kind of join with it, which is what concatenation means, you just mention them. So it takes n number of arguments. Any string it can take. That's it. Clear? Shall we move? Everyone, shall we move? Okay. Any doubts, if anyone still has? Okay, great. Next is called trim, right? So what is trim? Trim is another method, of course, another string method. Am I writing them outside? I'll write them inside. Right. So what is trim? Trim means cutting something, right? So let's say you had this sentence, right, which was my name is ABC. If I say sentence dot trim, what happens? Nothing happened here, right? What if I said like this? Then also nothing happened, right? So let's just understand what it actually means. The job of trim, right, is to remove white spaces. Okay, guys. So when I say white spaces, it means any spaces which are either at the starting of the string or at the end of the string. So let's say, let me just write a string here, right? So I'm just going to give a lot of spaces and say hello, and I'll give a lot of other spaces. Right? I'll just save this to some variable called s, right? So s has a lot of white space here and a white space here. And I say s.trim, it will give you hello. Right? Okay, guys. So trim is basically removing space from start and end. Yes, that is what it basically does. Space from the start and the end of a string. Cool. Okay. Now a new feature in JavaScript, relatively new actually, is just like you have trim, the inverse of that is pad. Actually pad start and pad end. Right? And maybe you've already guessed it. The way it works is, the way this works, guys, is you of course have a string. Let's say I have a string which is called hello. Right? And I can say s dot pad start. And let's say it's asking me the max length that I want to go to. And then it's asking me what I want to fill there, right? So let's say I want to fill it with 0, right? Or I want to fill it with a. What happens? Nothing happens, right? Anyone? What is the problem here? Does anyone know? So Pradeep is saying S has length 5. Okay. No white spaces there. Any other guesses that you guys have? Okay. See, what I'm going to do, guys, this is typically a method which is used in case of numbers, right? So in some cases, what you have is, let's assume this, right? You must have seen a lot of websites, right? In which what happens is, let's say there's some text. Maybe there was just a 5 written, right? And what you do is you say text dot, I'm just going to say pad start, right? And it's asking me, what do you want to pad it with? So I say 4, or let's say 3, and I say 0. Did you see what happened? Guys, did you see what happened? It can be anything. It can be 4 also, or 5 also, right? Typically for those zeros, right, that you must have seen on some banking websites or something, right? When you just start filling the amount and those zeros will just get added to the end, right? And just like pad start, there is pad end also. That's what I wanted to tell you guys about. Cool. Second thing, some people are still asking about The trim, this trim is very, very straightforward. Trim is used to remove white spaces from this ending. This is the end, and this is the start of a string, right? So when you have s, when you say s.trim, it will just remove those white spaces. And what you will be left with is hello. That's all it is. Everyone clear with this? Okay, wonderful. Cool, cool, cool. So pad start, pad end is what we've talked about, right? Few other easy ones. Anything with trim or only spaces. Pad. I mean, because of its length, that's why it didn't work. I just want to see if you guys can catch it. We can add string also. You can add anything, Arvi. Pad start and pad end. Okay, pad start and pad end again. Let's say this was text, right? You wanted to add something to it, either at the end or at the beginning, right? What I'm choosing is I'm choosing the length, how many I want to pad it with, and then I'm choosing what do I want to fill it with. So let's say I want to fill it with 0 in case of pad end, and let's say in case of pad start, I want to fill it again with 0. So either 50,000 can happen or 0.0005 can happen. Clear? Pad start, pad end, clear? Guys, are we clear? 5 is the number of this filler strings that you want to add. Right? But it takes a maximum value. That's the point I'm trying to make. So if you put h, it's going to fill it, but it's going to ensure that the maximum length never increases 5. Okay? It will ensure that the maximum length never increases 5 of the whole string. And that's why, Amit, when we were doing it for that long string, it was not working because the max length is set to 5. If let's say you increase it to 15, then it will fill it with 14 h's. Right? Because it does not touch the total length of the string. Total length will remain constant. It's not about index, nothing to do with index RV. This is the length of the string. Whatever space remains, it will fill with this. That's all it is. If I say hello, now it's able to fill 1 hello, 2 hello, and 3rd hello, it's not able to fill. It will not delete anything. It will try to fill it, right? Like we are making some pattern out of this. Exactly, Amit. With that use case in mind, they created this method. Okay, wonderful. Moving forward, guys. Easy one, another easy one. It's called in strings, right? Let's say this is a string, right? Strings, the building block of strings are called characters, right? So if I'm able to look at this string as a whole, right? Each of these elements, right? An A, a B, a C, a D, a J, Q, I, and 1 also. These are individual characters. When characters are brought together, what we form is a string, right? So keeping this in mind, there are some character methods which JavaScript provides you, right? The first one is called the char at method, right? So let's say I say this guy in P, and I want to check here what is present at, let's say, the 3rd character, right? So I can say char at 3rd, and what's actually present? D is actually present, right? What is present at the 0th character? A is present, right? So this is how the char at method works. It gives you the character at that position, 0 index, just like array. Or you can simply do this, right? I find this much simpler. Access the string like array. You can do this or you can do this. Both work in the exact same manner. Character methods. Are we clear? Okay, another very important concept. Very important concept. Please look at this very, very carefully. Otherwise, you'll keep asking me. If I say T of 0 is equal to B, what should happen now? What should happen now? No, no, it does not work. Perfect. Pradeep remembered it. There was one line we mentioned here. I don't know where we mentioned it. Any string method will not mutate, change the original string. Always remember this. Whenever you are working with JavaScript, nothing you can do can change a string. It can only return a new string. Okay. And probably the last method. No, actually the last method and the most important one also. It's called split, right? Very important one, folks. Look at this very carefully. Let's say hard sentence, right? You know, there is a repeating space here, right? Space, space, and space, right? If you want to break this string at these points, right? There is something called as split, the opposite of join. Perfect, Vishal. Glad that you're paying so much attention. You call it sentence dot split at space. And what do you get? You get an array of these 4 items, right? Opposite of join, like Vishal said. Is everyone clear? And I can split it at any character. Let's say I split it at capital N. What will happen? Before this and after this will get split. My gets split. AME is equal, AME is ABC gets split. Are we clear? Extremely important one. I think we've talked about this also one time. Cool. Okay, guys, that's it about string methods. Actually, we've covered all of them. One more thing, actually, before I cover, I close for today. Repeat it again. Okay, what is there to repeat in this one? Yeah. This is a sentence which is a string, right? When you want to break the string at any specific character, you say dot split, and you just mention that correct character, right? And the string will get broken into pieces from that. So at this space, the string gets broken. So my, this, and all of these things get broken, and it gives you an array out of that. Similarly, if you were to break this whole string on capital N, right? It will break here, and whatever pieces remain, the first piece and the piece after this will get filled in an array, right? So basically, this is what you get. My space and AME is ABC is what you get. Are we clear, everyone? You can't do that, Civic. There are some other methods, but we don't need to discuss them. These are, if you use them well, you have everything. Correct. Once you split the string, all array methods will be as it is applicable on it. For each, map, reduce, everything. Very common use case. Splitting the string and then using array methods on it. Good call out, Amol. Okay, just one last method. It's not a method, it's a concept, which I've been wanting to tell for a lot of days, but something or the other keeps happening. It's called template literal. Okay, let's just quickly understand this very small concept. So guys, we have typically seen, let's say I'm creating 2 variables. So let's say name is equal to or how do we do this? Okay, so let's say there is A, which is let's say color. So there is B, which is Let's say there is C, which is red. Okay. And up until now, what you've seen is whenever you want to concatenate strings, what you do is you say the plus space B, sorry, the color plus space is B is plus space plus C, right? So just for concatenating these strings, we had to write a very painful number of plus signs here, right? And the chances of mistakes are very high. We've discussed this before. Makes sense, guys? This is not easy to write, correct? But there's a simpler way out when you have to concatenate strings like it, right? That concept is called this thing, template literal, right? So in JS, there are 3 ways to declare a string. The first one is this thing. You write a string in this. The second way is single quotes, right? These two are exactly identical. And then there is a third one, right? The third one is writing string in backticks, right? Right? Does the same thing, but with one additional capability, right? So let's say I had to write something like this here, right? The color is red. What can I do? I can say backticks. Inside this, I say the, then I press space, of course, because I want to give a space, and I want to say color. And the variables inside this can be accessed with the $sign and the brackets. So here I can say the A space is, oh, sorry, space B is space C, right? So whatever the variables were, you access them with $sign like this, dollar and brackets, right? So look at these two things. One is this and the other is this. There is so less chance of making an error when you're doing this instead of this one. Did we understand? Much simpler, very less chances of making an error, right? And mind you, whenever you're putting a $sign inside this, you can do any calculation also. Right? So I can say day has 24 star 3600, 24 star 60 star 60 seconds, right? Becomes very easy. This is called a template literal. Let's take this example and I'll put it here. Just pushing your code. Pushed. It's just a editor feature, Harvey. It's not really my talent. You just select them with the option key in Mac, right? And then you can have multiple courses and then you can do whatever with them you want. Oh, all of the tricks and shortcuts, maybe some other day, guys. That's a different discussion altogether. The problem is I also don't remember them like in my mind. Is that my fingers have got used to it. So I automatically end up doing them and I don't even realize that I'm doing them. So if you ask me which key does this, I won't be able to tell you, but I can do that. Yes, Amit. So that was done using template literals. Okay. What we did is we created an array, right? And we just repeated an action n number of times. We had an array of 12 items, right? And what I was returning on each step was nothing but a template literal saying, I don't remember the exact code of that time. I think it should be here, right? In our HTML page. when we were discussing all the CSS things, right? Oh, code is not there, is it? How many more days? I feel, yes, but the concept was that, Amit. Basically, I had created an array. I was iterating through the array using an arrow function. And at each step, I was returning a template literal. Okay, how many more days? Guys, for the basics of JS, I think 10